German researchers have backed the EU's tough new climate goals, saying they're economically and technically feasible. Brussels is expected to propose a new target of cutting greenhouse gas emissions by 55% in the next 10 years, up from its previous goal of 40%. Of a 40% reduction, rather. That's in preparation for net zero carbon emissions by 2050. The new study says it can be done, but only if everyone gets on board. Well, joining me now with more details is Guy Sean from Explain the Markets in London. Guy, good afternoon to you there. Tell us about this new research. What have they been looking at and what have they found?
Tokes, this research goes right to the heart of one of the very biggest debates going on in the business community at the moment, one of the big dilemmas, and that is how business sees the idea of tougher carbon emission targets. As we obviously come now out of one of the biggest crises the world has ever known, and we look towards recovery, economic growth, increasingly there's a debate raging in business between people who see tougher targets, getting behind of green initiatives as being something that can help recovery, and those people who are reticent about it and would rather just perhaps leave things as they are and focus purely on making profits and revenue. And what we've seen from the analysts in Germany is they've been looking at various different policy options at an EU level, and they've been doing modelling work to try and predict the different effects of different policies when it comes to emissions. And one of their conclusions is that it's possible to make bigger cuts faster to carbon emission targets by targeting those sectors that are very carbon heavy in terms of their output, looking at power plants, a range of carbon intensive industries, European flights, the aviation industry, for example. So technically, they believe it's possible. The data says it's possible. The tough job, though, is really convincing those businesses that have been so hard hit already that actually they need to go further with green initiatives rather than holding them back.
Well, some are touting the Green Deal and the possible outcomes as the new El Dorado which we could reach here in Europe. But what sort of changes would it require and what sort of economic impact would it involve exactly?
Yeah, Tokes, you're right. You know, there are different views, there are different opinions, both from politicians and from business leaders, and some are reluctant to make any sort of increases, any tougher target increases at all until costs and risks have been really explicitly worked out at a very low level of detail. The business community is nervous. We've had such an enormous crisis that frankly leaders are moving forward very, very cautiously indeed. But there have been specific options that have been put forward by the German research group. One option, for example, to go tougher and go quicker would be to offset that against using EU funds, the next EU budget, to really get behind new infrastructure initiatives that harness green projects. So, for example, electric vehicle charging, to really consciously divert funds behind those initiatives to offset any damage that this might do to growth. Another option put forward by the group is to create an EU-wide system of auctioning emissions permits, with the proceeds of that system going directly to poorer states to make sure that as we go through this transition, that those poorer countries aren't disproportionately affected. So at the moment, the debate is about policy. It's about predictions for how, politicians might, really help business get through this transition. But the tough job now really is to conclude this debate so Europe's business leaders aren't split, so that they can get united behind the idea of green initiatives actually being a way to help us get growth, get us out of recovery, rather than being portrayed as things which potentially might hold us back.
Guy Sean there, CEO of Explain the Market. I guess the colour of your tie tells us which camp you're backing there as well too.